I need to share my other screen. Sorry, guys.
For those who are joining us, just letting you know, we are recording this session. If you do not want to be recorded, just be sure to keep your camera off. Thank you.
It's 1:30 now, and if people start slowing down, Danielle, for entering, let me know, and I'll get started in just a minute or two.
Yeah, I think you can probably get started.
All right, fabulous. So if you are here on this Zoom call, it's 1:30 on April 24th. You should be in this room in this session if you're part of the Eco Justice stream. And if you're in a session with Juli and Alison. My name is Karen Bromberg. I'm going to be your facilitator today. We've also got Danielle here. She's going to be helping behind the scenes. So if you have any technical issues, please add it to the chat. And to get us started, I'd like to read a land acknowledgement with everyone. We acknowledge the traditional territory upon which the conference is being hosted. For many thousands of years, the Huron-Wendat, Petun First Nations, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit have sought to walk gently on this land. This territory is covered with Treaty 13 with Mississaugas of Credit, as well as by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the lands and resources around the Great Lakes. This acknowledgement signals our desire to seek a new relationship with the original peoples of this land, one based on honor and deep respect, and is a starting point to remind us all to enact this work in our personal and professional lives. Before we get started, I'm going to introduce our two speakers this morning, our guests this afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm going to start with, let's see, which one do I have up first here? I'm going to start with Juli, and I have to pull up Alison's too, just to make sure I have everybody on the same page. Juli Mori, she is a teacher at TDSB in the virtual schools and has experience in geography, environmental studies, civics, and history. With her passion for pollinators, social justice, and sustainable urbanism, she has worked with multiple community groups and nonprofit organizations to take learning out of the classroom for children and youth. Last summer, she completed the final part of her three-part environmental education AQ program for teachers at OISE. Alison is also presenting with Juli today in the session Changing Lenses. Alison Williams is a teacher at TDSB as well and is currently working via the virtual school platform. Always passionate about the environment, Alison has focused on making the outdoors accessible for students and their families. Regardless of where they live, their cultural background, or their prior experiences with the natural world, Alison is currently pursuing her master's education part-time at OISE and focusing on curriculum and pedagogy. She has a deep interest in science and environmental education, as well as community development at the local and international level. So welcome both Juli and Alison. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn my mic off and pass it back to you guys.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you very much, Karen. I'm just going to get started then with the screen share for our presentation, and we can go right into our agenda. Today, we're going to have 4 parts. We're going to do part 1 and 2 together, where we look at the personal and then we look at the institutional, the school. For us, your institution may not be a school, and that's okay. We have lots of ways we can integrate your work, whether in school or out, or both. And then in part 3, we're going to have a Zoom room split. We're going to actually go into breakout rooms, and if you haven't done that, then we invite you to try that out. And then finally, we will all come back here at 2:10 for questions and answers. So you will gather again together. So just so you know, if you have another device, this is actually a very device-friendly presentation. If it happens to be a phone, that's great. If it's a tablet, that's great. But if you don't, you can maybe do an escape and find another tab, right? And get that ready. For 2 slides from now, you'll want that, okay?
Okay, so the goal of our workshop is going to be to develop our skills in examining class bias and privilege in environmental education. So we want to focus on how to examine our school and our community for assets and opportunities. And our aim is to improve access to environmental education, environmental engagement for underserved students and their families through school leadership.
Thank you, Alison. So part one, we're going to start by centering our own focus on our class bias, and we all have it, regardless of where our class lies or our experience with class and with income and status. So what we're going to try out is something called a Menti. Some of you are very familiar and some less so. What you do is you go on your device to something called menti.com, and it will pop up and look like this. And you'll type in 59, 34, 33, 72, 59, 34, 33, 72. And Danielle or Karen, if one of you could put that in the chat just so people can grab it. I'm going to switch to the Menti screen in just a moment. But what you're doing with this is you're ranking a set of values. And I borrowed this activity from a curriculum resource and adapted it for environmental education because I realized that class has an impact on how we experience the outdoors, how we teach in the outdoors and about the environment. And so we've come up with these values that many of us have. Owning and being able to ride a bicycle, having lots of healthy food choices, having a playground nearby, having a backyard, having land for growing a garden, having trees on my street, the ability to travel for leisure, and owning a home. And these aren't necessarily things that you currently experience, right? So, right, but and your answers will be anonymous, but they're more where do you focus your values. So, getting started with the Menti should now show up. And it should look like this. There'll be a pull down window, and then you have to select an option. You will be given all the options again. If you didn't catch them, that's okay. They'll be on the screen in front of you or on the tab. Just take a moment. So Alison and I are going to do it as well. And you'll start to see the values that we have get ranked. And keep in mind, our values have changed because of COVID. Our living circumstances have changed. So just sort of take a pulse right now with where you're at. I get that it may have changed from last year and it may even change a year from now. Okay, so just where you're at right now today.
And this is what do you mean most important to me personally, someone's asking?
That's right. Thank you. Thanks for monitoring the chat for us because I don't have it up. I usually do. So I really appreciate that.
Yes.
So yeah, this is a personal thing. You can certainly use an activity like that with a class. I've even done this as an auction where I auction it off to kids, and some kids get what they want and some don't based on money, and it helps make it more tangible. Yeah, but this one I like in virtual school because the interaction, I work with secondary students, and the interaction is protected in terms of kids not being able to clash my teaching with their outside feelings, and sometimes just for the sake of making it not work. But at the same time, it speaks to values, right? And it helps them rank them, and it's a really nice tie-in. Anyways, down here in the bottom right is 17 of us having participated. That's lovely. Thank you so much. And I don't know if you've been able to see them move around. I haven't been watching. What have people noticed?
I just noticed right now, but 4 and 5, the pink one and the brown one have just switched. So owning a bicycle versus having land to grow on have just switched. So now it is 5th and 4th and 5th.
So the gardeners like you and the bikers like me are having it out. Is that it?
I guess so. But it's funny because if we had done this 2 years ago, maybe the values and may have been different. And now
I actually think even last summer when we did it, it was different.
Yes, it was. Yeah. So we'll give that a couple of minutes.
Yep.
There we go. I think we're good now, Julie.
Excellent. Okay. So a little trick that I do when I'm teaching is I do a screenshot of this kind of stuff that we are doing in class, just like this. And I put it into my presentation so that we have a reference for it later. And then we have sort of a litmus test of where were we at? Has our learning changed? If you're doing it like that, or have our values shifted as we learned? That's kind of, so food, trees, backyard, bike and garden, leisure, playground, owning a home. Interesting. So there are our different values that we just considered. And I just want to provoke a few questions, and we'll take some ideas in the chat just for a couple minutes. And they're the following. Which of these values that you just ranked depend on what type of housing you have? So that's number one. Okay, if you want to type in a little response, you can, you don't have to, but you just put the number on it if you're going to. Number two, which values are influenced by your family income or your household income? Number three, which values are influenced by the greenery in your neighborhood? Number four, what does this tell us about the value people place on different things in life? Number five, what does this tell you about families' access to what they value most? So, first time I started learning about the intersection of class and environmental sort of learning and just being outside, this made me really think, and it made me really have to shift my own thinking about other people's values. Because my students who don't live in houses their parents own, owning a house is really high. I put mine below, but I own one. So what does that say about me? So yeah, so really had to do some digging, sort of conscientiously. Okay, so why are the rankings not matching with the bars? Oh, I had previous rankings cut and pasted, and I put your own into the slides. So maybe that was what you saw. I deleted out practice. I'm going to move on then, and Alison's going to take over part two. Don't let go of this, because the slides are going to change in just a moment, or the screen.
Okay, so part two, we're going to talk about how we as educators or community workers or community members, how do I start to change my lens? Okay. Now, I want you to think about the questions that we're going to list below this. And are any of these internalized questions familiar to you? So, for example, why are people not recycling or composting? Why are students not biking to school? Why are some parents driving their children to school? Why do children not want to go out on nature walks or go outside? Now, when you want to know how to infuse more environmental education into your school community, you might be disappointed if you're not seeing the results that you are expecting or the results that you want. So the Equity Continuum, which is a book that we're going to show you, is a good tool to use. And in order to see what you are doing, but also what you're not doing, or we are not doing as educators and community members. Okay, so the Equity Continuum looks like this. And it is a book that was written by Karen Mori and Nicole West Burns. And it is actually from the Center for Urban Schooling at the University of Toronto, Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. And I received this book when I was doing a course with Karen Mori. And she's excellent. So it's a toolkit for helping us to determine our school's ability to connect with the larger community. So in the first section, you'll find that there's a table of contents, and it has a lot to do with equity tenets that are going to be developed in the resource. So the next slide has a larger section of the table of contents. So it focuses on classroom climate and instruction, school climate, student voice and space, family, caregiver, school relations, school leadership, community connections, and the culture of professional development. It also has secondary schools considerations and then community considerations. And basically, the way that this document works is it's kind of like a scale, So it asks you a question, or it gives you a statement, and then you get to move your indicator along a line to see whether or not you think it's between you're not really, your school or community is not doing this, or you find it that you're doing it fully in practice. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to ask you to think of it, and don't be judgmental for yourself. It's okay. You'll get a chance to see where you think your school is or your community is along this continuum. So we're going to be changing it. I can see that there are lots more changes. More people have added to the first mentee. Great. So we're going to do the second mentee, and you're going to need to know your Mentimeter again. The code is the same. It's 59 34 33 72. But you'll see when you go in there, you'll find there are a different set of questions or a different set of statements. So when you go in, you'll see that there are categories, about 6 different ones. You're going to slide your marker along and decide where you think, not necessarily you, but your community or your school where you work, where you are. So for example, ongoing opportunities exist to learn from the local community. Where do you think they are? Teachers mention equity issues, so you can take a look at it and read them for yourself and decide where you think your building or your community will fit. And then when we have the results in, then we'll get an idea of where most people think that they are. Okay, so once again, it's menti.com, and the code is 59343372, and it's in the chat actually. And thank you for putting up the resource for the equity document. And I had asked Karen Murray, and you can actually purchase this book if you like at a different book list, which is a bookstore in Toronto. It's available there. Okay. We'll give you a few minutes to put yourself or your organization, school, community in there. I'm going to do mine right now.
This one's bouncing all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And remember, this is anonymous, so we're not going to be able to see, who answers what, but it's just to give an idea, to give us an idea of what we think most people are thinking about their schools. And so basically, if you find that you're not doing it or you're middle of the road, maybe there are some things that we can do to make it stronger, make it better. Now, while we're waiting, this document is great because it has all kinds of different categories. So as I mentioned, there's some for the classroom. And one of the things that I looked at as a teacher, because I teach, right now I'm teaching virtually for kindergarten, but when I was teaching in a building, I looked and I said, oh dear, how is my classroom climate in terms of equity? I try, but there may be some things that I'm missing. So if you can get your hands on a copy of this book, it really is enlightening. Okay.
I find also, Alison, if you don't mind me taking from that, is when you have people in your institution, your school, your institution that are hesitant about looking critically, right, at their spaces, right, the hallways, classrooms, offices, whatever it is, and practice giving into a bit of an outside, what's it called?
Objective
expert, no, like an outside expert who's acknowledged, as an outside expert in this, sometimes helps you, if you are trying to get your institution to focus more on this issue, take a little bit of the heat off yourself, right? Because it's hard work to do, right? And I find that sometimes people want the intellectual when I'm engaging them, because like, show me that this is what we need to do. Some people need the heart, but most of those heart-based people are with us a little more, right? Because this is good for the kids and they see it. Other people need the head part. And if you have something like this to back you up, I don't know. It takes some of the heat off as a leader sometimes.
You're right.
It's not perfect, but
It looks
Sorry, I
like
don't mean
we're
this
just
is not.
about done. Oh, there's some more coming in. I think we're just
Yeah.
about done.
Yeah, we are. And look at the splits really, right? Where we see some, you can do this if you're in Menti to see where the votes are. Anyways, you were going to say something, Alison.
No, I was just going to say the same thing. It's interesting to see where people have decided where their school or their institution is. It's really good. And then once we know where we are, when we can figure out what we can do to make changes. Okay.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to grab that. Sorry, give me a moment. I'm going to grab our ideas just so that we have them. And I'm replacing an old one with ours. The bookstore is a different book list.
Correct. Yes.
All one word book list. Okay. Are we ready for this, or did you want to say one more thing
No,
about this before we
I'm
go to
ready.
the
We're
next
good.
piece?
No.
So we haven't had a lot of discussion about these 6 things. 6, 5. Oh, yeah, it got cut off. We haven't had a lot of discussion about these 6 statements. However, if there's one that resonated with you, you might hold on to it in terms of an indicator and see whether or not you make a connection to that indicator in the next part. Meaning, like, is there something you're looking to do? Is there some change you're looking to make? Is there some resource you're looking to fill the gap? Okay.
Okay, so the next part we're going to do is we call it our Zoom room split, and you can decide where you'd like to go. So for example, if you're interested in kindergarten to grade 8 educators or community members, we're going to be looking at the ecology of place and the school setting using a really great resource, and that will be with me. If you are interested in older students, so grade 9 to 12 educators and community members, you will be working with Juli, and you'll be going into the next room. And this will be good because we'll get a chance to talk. You can turn on your microphones, ask questions. We have something to show you, and then you'll get a chance to share and connect. So we'll be ready.
And you'll get to select that room in just a moment because Danielle is setting it up. We're all coming back here for 2:10, just so you know. Okay, Alison? So I will see you at 2:10.
Yes, I will see you. So you'll be getting a notification on your screen very soon about you can choose which room that you want to go to. There you go. So room number 1 will be, it actually has a label, so K to 8, and the other one is 12. So you can join the room that you wish, and we'll see you there.
Oh, I was with Alison. Oh, perhaps she's there.
Nothing has popped up for me. So as a
Nothing's popped
co-host,
up?
not yet.
It'll be maybe on your bottom right, under the breakout room.
Well, I was
Chantal,
with.
you want to go with Alison?
Yes, because I am in primary and junior groups.
Yep. Let me send you there. I can help. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
And Erin is also having problems.
And I don't.
Don't have one.
And Tanya, where do you want to go?
The primary K to 8.
Okay, Danielle's gonna help with that. Anybody else stuck here?
I'm also not seeing any pop up.
Okay,
Okay.
Anne-Marie and Karen, where would you like to go?
I'd like to go with Alison, please.
Okay, we'll
Me as
do.
well, please.
So that's Anne-Marie and Karen. And Nina would like to go to 9 to 12. Erin would like to go to primary.
Debbie would like primary.
Thank you, Debbie. Valerie, where do you want to go?
Secondary, please.
Secondary for Valerie. Cheska, Tori is asking for secondary, and Cheska is still here with you and I. I know Tori personally, so she might have stepped away from her computer for a moment. She's got a young one at home. Oh, but she's gone now, so that's good.
Good. And just Cheska. Okay. Thank you for that help.
No problem.
Okay.
I'll message out Jessica if she comes back here for some reason, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry, I did like secondary, please. Okay, thanks, Jessica, for
Okay.
confirming.
Okay, good to go. And now, do you have a prompt anywhere on your screen to join?
No, I don't have any prompts. I see
Do you know
recording.
where the bottom right where it says breakout rooms? Do you have that?
I don't have that on mine.
Okay, let me see what I can do. I can send you.
Okay, I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
sorry.
It's
And
okay.
yeah, if you want to come back, you can come back. And
Okay,
I'll
cool.
join the elementary. Okay, see
Okay.
you later.
Yeah, see you soon.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Julie, I just wanted to share one last thing before we go to the Q&A, and that was just the resources at the end.
Oh, me too.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's do yours and then mine. I just do
Okay.
one resource and then people can start to put their questions into
Yes.
that piece. Okay.
Okay, so hold on.
Are we here?
No, just give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to click share. Okay, here we go. You can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just checking because of what happened this morning. Okay, so in terms of action, if we as educators and community members want to take action and make changes, there are some things that we can do. So we can try to connect with our local community organizations, depending on where you live in the country. So for example, you might connect families with allotment gardens or Evergreen or Food Share or the Black Creek Community Farm. And sometimes, like I know now, especially in virtual, so many of them are willing to do free things. So there was Bee City. There are a lot of other things that we could do that don't necessarily require the students to go outside, but it kind of sparks things. And then when things get better, there's a possibility that they might go out. So here are some more community resources that I found from different parts of the city of Toronto. Leaf, we have the Stop, Community Gardens, Malvern takes root, Rexdale Community Hub, the Dorset Park Hub. Now, you can find one that is applicable for your community, where you work or where you live, and see what will work for you.
Can you go to the slide with Jane's Walk on it? I think it's number 25 or 27.
Perfect. This one, perfect.
One more.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Oh no, two more.
There
That's
it
the
is.
one.
This one?
Yeah, and then yeah, it should have a visual. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention to people who are familiar with Jane's Walk, this is the Toronto one. But if you go to Jane's Walk CA, like Canada, it's usually a Canada-wide walking festival, and it may be running in your areas virtually. So there will be, for example, geography students in Toronto creating virtual walks that people can access to go on them, like actually go on the walk right at a distance. So this is something they figured out during COVID, there are some resources in our resource package where you can use some of the school-based Jane's Walk that they've developed.
And not only that, Jane's Walk is great because it gives you a chance to go for a walk in a community that's different, that might be different from your own, or one where we work, or one that is another part of the city. So I would definitely recommend it. And then when you do that, take some of those questions that we talked about in the ones that were in my group, take some of those questions and talk about it and see how that will affect the way that we as educators and community members, the lens with which we view the communities where we are. Okay. Now, let's see, are there any questions in the chat? Let me stop sharing.
Oh, Somi has added a wonderful set of resources that are applicable to many communities and bilingual. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay. Here are the books. Sure. Okay, the books. I'll get the books. So Erin Sperling asked if we could share the books from the breakout groups. Yes. Now, did you want to put up the resource list because it's in the resource?
That's what I'll do is I'll just upload it.
Perfect.
So I'm just uploading a PDF that has a handout with all those books. I'm going to look at Danica's question. Any advice to prep for each class that visits you? Don't generalize demographics based on. So it depends. That actually, Danica, I'm just going to say that depends. I think you can get kids. One way to do that is to get kids to tell stories about their walk to school or what they see. And then sometimes I actually do layer demographics on it later with the kids. So you could look into those demographics, and sometimes they'll be able to tell you what some of the differences are in their own neighborhood, and where there's places where everyone uses a particular outdoor space or a particular resource or what have you. That's first of all. What grade level, Danica? All grades. Okay, so I guess, with your editor, 3 to 5. Okay, so I can see why looking at the demographic data with that group would be something you want to be careful with, because you don't want to put everybody in a box. Any other suggestions, Alice? Anybody else?
Somebody asked for a link to the slides. I'm going to have to make a couple of changes before it, but what I will do then is I'll put my email in, I'll put my email in the slide, and then you can connect with me, because there are a couple of things that I'll need to just change, and I'll put them up. So here's my email.
So Tori asked us, so Danica, not that we aren't thinking about your question, but that's a good one. So Tori, though, maybe dives into it. Any issues around kids disclosing their housing or neighborhood info? And yeah, there are issues, and that really comes down to, first of all, creating a classroom atmosphere. One of the things I do when I have kids map their places, and I do this using GIS sometimes, or I use it on paper, it doesn't really matter, but I try to invite them to start with very human things like food. Where would you go? Where's somewhere you go to eat or get food? Where's somewhere you'd like to go to eat to get food? Like, I've always been meaning to try that ramen place. And then you might be able to bridge the gap between kids who can afford and kids who can't, without talking about without stigmatizing the kid who can't. It's because they can't afford, right? Like that's one of the issues. A place outdoors that you've been to with your family, like just talking about their lives helps them realize you're not going to do anything negative with that information. They're going to start to find commonalities between each other. I invite them always to make connection to another part of the world, not where have you traveled, right? That's one thing you can do is, what's a connection to another country that is either cultural, something you'd like to do or try, ancestral, and try to really broaden that question of connection to different places and spaces that doesn't invite kids to identify with class. The housing one, though, once the kids become a classroom, they start to take the case I was working with, because I had a lot of pride in what community housing they come from, because it was like, look at us, we're showing up. That isn't always the case. And so that's where your interaction with them and having them see assets in that community, perhaps visiting that one deliberately, go look at the addresses of your kids and be like, I've even taken the database of students in a particular class and looked at their community for assets. Sometimes they have to be highlighted. So another thing you can do with the person who's saying the kids are coming from different places, do some geolocating of assets in their community and then help them see it. The more practice you get, the more you go towards getting the kids to show you what their lives look like and feel like, as opposed to you showing them what they don't know. So it's a real back and forth. I'm sorry, I think I'm all over. Did I do okay with that?
Yeah, you got it.
Fine.
Okay.
One of the things that was connecting for me is looking at the asset-based approach, like Tori's mentioning in the comments there, in the same way that we look at our environment and seeing what is an asset in the environment and seeing the benefits of what is there. So if it's an invasive species and it might not supposed to be there, it still might be beneficial in a different way. So seeing it in the same lens, connecting this to an environmental lens as well.
Yes.
I think you might have one more question or comment there from Marika.
Can you repeat it for Alison? I can't find it.
I can't find it either. I just have something more coming.
So it's just a comment from Marika saying one framework which likely overlaps with the resources shared today that might be useful for some is the approach of dialogic interpretation, which is collaborating and building meanings and exploring a place. Others are starting to say thank you for a fantastic session because we're coming to the end. And Tanya is asking, hi Danica, are the kids coming to you? I find in times when it's been possible, being outside with my students is really instructive to their comfort, knowledge, skills outside. Like if I examine a tree and start talking about the leaves and branches, kids will quickly chime in with their observations and knowledge. And that gives me a great snapshot on where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
But on that note, we have to say goodbye. I want to say a big thank you to Alison and Juli for your great presentation and insights. You've given us a lot to think about. I wish everybody the best of luck in the next few sessions, and hopefully everybody's been happy e-comming. Take care and get to your next session.
Thank you. Can I just say one more thing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
For people who might not be aware, if you click on the 3 dots right beside file at the bottom of your chat, you can save the chat. And so if you weren't able to read it or missing a link to something, you can save the chat. That's all.
You're a pro. You know this stuff.
It's helped me on many occasions. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thanks,
you.
Alison.
Okay.